we're live.
Not yet, yeah. It took a while.
I want their leader brought here. I want him brought to me. I want the revolution crushed.
I said volume down here.
I tried.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Mamluks. We are live out of a blistering cold West Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to the show, everyone. We have our resident Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Allama, Sheikh Amr Saeed. Welcome to the show. And we have, oh my God, look at this. Look at this pearl.
Magic Mort.
Who's that? Who's that?
Mashallah.
Mysterious
Assalamu
guy.
alaikum. What's going on, guys? Sorry, I've been missing in
Mashallah.
action. I'm kind of nervous. My first show in years.
Don't be nervous. Everything's going to be okay.
Someone needs to hold my hand. No, but it's good to be back. Alhamdulillah. Sorry, guys. I've just been extremely busy. And for the folks out there wondering, yes, I was getting new sunglasses. That's why I couldn't be on the show.
Yeah. And the one and only, Harry from Indonesia.
Assalamu alaikum, munafiqs and kafirs. How y'all doing? you guys wouldn't let me say ninjas anymore because that's racist. So you're all munafiqs and kafirs now. Enjoy.
I want to make. I really want to turn that into a meme, dude. Like Munafik.
Munafik.
Like
yeah.
it's just Munafik.
Why do you have to just seek Heil with the Munafik?
I don't know. It just reminds me like a German, like Munafik. Like I don't know why,
Bro,
It just seemed appropriate, like a German like accent, like Munafik.
Oh,
Because
You
we're
know what I mean?
Muslims and Hitler's our boy. That's why. Come on.
oh my God! No, I
No.
just associate myself with that.
No, it just seems that I don't know. It's like one of the things. You know how things that just feel right. Like you could picture him saying it. I just picture Hitler saying that. Munafik. Like,
By the way, speaking of H-word guy,
yeah.
do you know the popularity this guy is getting ever since people have been translating his speeches? I'm talking about like Americans, bro, starting to love Hitler. It's freaking crazy. Have you guys been seeing the following that all these people have been translating
Well, I think
his actual speeches?
A lot of it's happening on Twitter. I
Yeah,
think-
Twitter
Yeah.
and like and
Twitter.
and look. Here's the thing too, right? I think if we're gonna be 100% honest, you have to understand something. Hitler got to his position not because he was a moron,
Yeah, that's
right? He was charismatic. He understood how to speak the language his people or populace understood, right? So naturally, there's going to be things that resonate
Yeah.
with people, right? It doesn't mean. I mean, again, I don't think people necessarily disagree. And Harry, maybe you're the guy here to talk to about this, but I don't think people necessarily disagreed with in generally his principles, but they disagreed in methodology, right? Like I think that was the main thing, right? I mean, of course.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have a much higher opinion of the Mustache Man if he hadn't killed 6 million of
Right.
unalived 6 million cookies by being the Cookie Monster at once.
Speaking of
And,
unalive
that
is
actually, I did.
Oh, the
that
codes you
did-
have to speak in.
By the way, for the record, I do actually think that actually did happen. So I am not a
Yeah, same.
cost denier.
Well, I mean,
I do think they may be exaggerating a little bit, but it was still pretty terrible. And
Yeah.
it was very traumatic for Jewish people. So,
but
I just
also
wanna be
with
very
for
clear,
other races
I
as
don't
well,
support
for
that.
Poles, for
everyone,
gypsies,
yes.
yeah, and for many other
yeah,
races.
I mean,
as well.
I mean, Harry, I think what we were trying to say is that he definitely did target Jews. There's no doubt. I mean, the numbers can be
Yes.
argued about, but he targeted Jews for a bad reason,
Definitely.
right?
Very much.
And I think, but I think we also have to note in saying that, though, there were other areas that are conveniently overlooked in history, like what happened in Dresden. Like there's things like this,
Yes.
right? The Holodomor, right? There's things that we overlook that happened that build up, right? But
Yeah.
you can't just deny and say it didn't happen. I mean, that would be foolish. That would be. I mean, when someone says that to me, I just have to think twice about.
Yeah.
Are they in touch with
I
reality?
first started getting into this alternative history stuff really when I was in like middle school, high school, and people thought I was really like out there and weird.
Yeah.
And for a while, I went to school in Buffalo, New York, or Amherst more specifically, where there's a lot of Jews, and the name for me in the hallways was, "Oh, look, it's Hitlerson here." When I was in 8th grade, I wrote this essay about Adolf Hitler, and I said, Adolf Hitler was the greatest leader of all time.
Oh.
What I meant to say was he was really charismatic in getting people to do stuff.
Yeah.
But they're like, and all the Jewish kids would be like freaking hell, like, he's the next school shooter. Oh no, he's gonna get us.
Well,
and I'm like, no, dude, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that.
But isn't that the nature of a lot of strongmen, that they're charismatic, right? I mean,
Yes.
even in terms of even successful American politicians, right? They're very charismatic, whether they be in line with a democracy or monarchy or theocracy. You have to have a degree of charisma in order to be able to lead a people, right? So to deny that Hitler had that and the ability to motivate people to think the way he did, it just would be odd to deny that. Like, he was definitely, he understood that craft very well.
yeah. Well, brothers and sisters, we are now celebrating, or the people of Gaza are celebrating the ceasefire that has taken effect today. You're seeing scenes of jubilation all across Gaza because of that. Whether or not the Israelis live up to the terms of the ceasefire, we all know their games that they're going to play, and trying to say that, Hamas broke the ceasefire and we're going to send 1,000 missiles their way. Like they're just going to use whichever way they can to manipulate the laws, to read between the lines and manipulate the terms of the ceasefire to their own will. But today's a day of celebration for the people of Gaza. We're not here to throw cold water on their one day where they're feeling a bit happy over the past year and a half. So let's just share in that jubilation and enjoy the moment at least, and be hopeful that the Israelis are exhausted and fatigued from war, because they've lost a lot of IDF soldiers as well on their side. They're not revealing the numbers, but it's a hell of a lot.
Yeah,
it's in the thousands, and they lost a lot of just people in their fight against Hamas and the resistance.
And I think that answers the question to why now, right?
Yeah.
From amongst many reasons, it's the exhaustion.
Yeah.
The sheer exhaustion, and how it's been carried out. The reputation that's been completely tarnished by Israel within 1 year has been completely destroyed for the process that was years and decades of building this reputation. Has been, at least for 50%, just the American population, 50 to 60% of the American population has just been completely battered. Their reputation. That's one of the reasons. Why else? Why now? What do you think?
So, I mean, look, I like to be optimistic.
Yeah.
But I think this has a lot to do with Trump.
Yeah.
And is that necessarily a good thing? I don't know. And I'll tell you why. He may say, listen, you're not going to do much more in Gaza right now, right? Like, you've already pretty much have handicapped Hamas. Hezbollah is not a threat to you anymore with these pagers that you've done. Executed a flawless operation. Gaza is leveled, right? If you do this right now and you stop, you make a ceasefire, you make our job easier in the world, we will help you take down Iran, but even further, right? Like, I believe Netanyahu and Israel is trying to do with the help of America is reshape the Middle East.
I agree.
Right? So it may have come off like that, they're announcing a ceasefire because of Trump, but as much as we don't like Israel, we can't deny that they also have very strong negotiators on the table. They're going to do what is good for Israel first, right? And there has to be something in that deal that allows Israel to get something more at the end, right? And otherwise, they wouldn't have signed. They didn't have a reason. They never listened in the first place. They continued to bomb. So I think there's something more there, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
What are your thoughts?
I think, I can't say Lord and Savior Trumpalicious, because people are going to think that I'm actually equating him with the Almighty. So I'm going to say our hero Trumpalicious,
our glorious leader,
our glorious leader Trumpalicious, Trump. I think what happened is Donald Trump was losing his base on X. He pays attention to X very, very well. And you remember I got into some chitter chatter with some other folks who said, "Oh, we got to support, Trump no matter what," or at least that's how they felt. I'm going to support Trump no matter what because I don't like the alternatives. And I said, "Look, I'm not going to support him this time because he needs to feel the pressure." And I think what happened is Trump saw what happened in Michigan, and he doesn't want a repeat of that. He is very instinctive and very intuitive. He's like a shark. He knows and smells blood in the water, and he sees that Israel is a losing issue. He can read the polls. He can feel it from talking to people. He watches X religiously. And so he knew that Israel is starting to become a pariah. It went from being a third rail of politics that you couldn't touch to being a fifth column and a toxic pariah. And I'm going to disagree with Mort a little bit on Hezbollah and Hamas. Yeah, the pager attack was pretty brutal. Yeah, Hamas got knocked pretty hard by losing Nasrallah and his inner circle. But the rank and file of Hezbollah and Hamas are still hopping and popping and kicking. And Hamas in particular got a whole bunch of new blood over the last
Blinken
year
said that.
In the rank. And so I don't think Trump wants war with Iran. I don't think Trump actually wants to remake the Middle East. I think he theoretically might want to pull out completely, but he's probably more like Reagan. Reagan, when he said in his memoir about Lebanon, if I had known how complicated and tribal and ridiculous the Middle East was, I would have never gone out there. And Reagan pulled us out of Lebanon in the 80s because after that Khobar Tower incident with the barracks getting attacked, he just said, "This is nonsense. What are we doing?"
Marines, right, that died over there?
Yeah, the Marines.
Yeah.
So Trump, I think, is just trying to avoid chaos, and I think he also the...
Did you see on January 7th what Trump posted on Truth Social?
Yes.
That is huge.
Jeffrey Sachs.
Oh my God,
yes.
that blew my mind. Here we go. Let's just play for the listeners and we can comment on it.
The war in Syria, and you may actually hear from grown-up reporters who are lying through their teeth or ignorant beyond imagining that, the war in Syria, yes, Russia intervened in Syria. Well, do you know that that Obama tasked the CIA to overthrow the Syrian government starting 4 years before Russia intervened? What kind of nonsense is that? And how many times did the New York Times report on Operation Timber Sycamore, which was the presidential order to the CIA to overthrow Bashar al-Assad? 3 times in 10 years. This is not democracy. This is a game. And it's a game of narrative. Why did the U.S. invade Iraq in 2003? Well, first of all, it was completely phony pretenses. It wasn't, we were so wrong, they didn't have weapons of mass destruction. They actually did focus groups in the fall of 2002 to find out what would sell that war to the American people. Abe Schultzke, if you want to know the name of the PR genius. They did focus groups on the war. They wanted the war all the time. They had to figure out how to sell the war to the American people, how to scare the shit out of the American people. It was a phony war. Where did that war come from? You know what? It's quite surprising. That war came from Netanyahu, actually. You know that? It's weird. And the way it is that Netanyahu had from 1995 onward the theory that the only way we're going to get rid of Hamas and Hezbollah is by toppling the governments that support them. That's Iraq, Syria, and Iran. And the guy's nothing if not obsessive. And he's still trying to get us to fight Iran this day, this week. He's a deep, dark son of a bitch, sorry to tell you. Because he's gotten us into endless wars. And because of the power of all of this in the U.S. politics, he's gotten his way. But that war was totally phony. So what is this democracy versus dictatorship? Come on. These are not even sensible terms.
So this Jeffrey Sachs is a very reputable, notable economist from Columbia University, I believe. And President-elect Trump reposted this interview on January 7th. What does that indicate to you?
Ooh.
I don't think that was just like, accidentally. Trump is just, 2 a.m. scrolling through his feed. That could be a possibility, but what's more likely is that he's trying to send a signal to his friends in Israel and stuff that, hey, this is enough. Your people. This is how people are feeling here in this country. Where in the United States, they're done with this. They want this over. Everyone's feeling the heat. Nobody wants to be part of this anymore. And it's just as clear of a message as you could possibly send without like you saying it yourself.
Yep.
So I just want to go back and touch on something that Harry mentioned. So I'm not saying that Trump wants to reshape the Middle East. I think Trump likes the way the Middle East is because he makes money from it. America makes money from it. I think, though, as part of a concession for Israel, that America very much understands what Israel wants to achieve. Israel is that state in the region that refuses to identify its borders. America is very familiar with the idea that Israel wants to expand territory and influence. And I believe that in order to achieve this ceasefire, he's saying, listen, we'll find ways to collaborate on other areas in the Middle East, maybe more territory in the Golan, maybe some more territory, maybe even destabilizing Iran even further. And coming to Iran, I don't think Iran poses a threat as much as it was like 6 months ago. I mean, the damage that we saw initially didn't look like much, but upon, like, when I did my research on it, Israel did hit a lot of significant targets within Iran, right? And I'm not, and I hate to say this and praise them in any way, but I don't think Iran is as strong as it was. Of course, it's trying to regroup, and it still poses a threat in some degree. Of course, it's a nation that has power. We cannot deny that. But I think there's a trade-off here. I think because if you look at it from a political perspective, right, what more can Israel get out of Gaza besides occupying the thing entirely? Well, then you're posed with a problem with moving these people. That's horrible for the optics. And then number two, if you don't do that and just occupy it, now you're in this constant threat with people there. There's nothing much more you can achieve in Gaza besides leveling it out.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the idea, basically what I'm trying to say is that he's saying, listen, you've already achieved the most you can achieve here.
Yeah.
If you let this go, there's other things we can collaborate on that you will get more of what you want.
The quiet part, though, Mort, is that what the Zionists don't want to say is that they want them all gone. They want to make the conditions so unbearable, so uninhabitable that they are all just crammed up at the Egyptian border and fighting their way in to Egypt.
So I think that's what Trump made them concede, is that listen, you're not going to get rid of 2 million people.
Yeah.
Right? And you just have to give up on that idea.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get rid of 2 million people. We've tried with our partners in the region. You've offered them money. You've tried to get them in the Sinai, in other places, and you're not going to get them to move. This is a losing battle for you to continue on. You're just going to make it worse for yourself. If you stop now and do this, we can help. Because I think to what Harry's mentioning, it is becoming concerning for the Americans to have to keep defending what Israel is doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Stressful.
So now if you can pivot now and achieve other goals that you wanted, we can collaborate on that because they're not in the central eye right now, right? Like they're taking land in Syria at the moment, right? They're still doing certain things, and it's not making the same headlines, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the angle. It's not necessarily that Trump wants to be involved or reshape or believes in Israel's agenda, but I think that's the bargaining point for Israel. I mean, Harry, my thing is, I just don't see why Israel would agree. I mean, they've defied America for a long time and many other nations, and they somehow, they have a lot of influence in the Congress. They can still get their funding. That's not going away.
Trump didn't have to come to them and say, "Look, we're going to help you do X, Y, and Z other thing if you stop attacking Gaza." Trump didn't have to do that. All Trump had to do is what previous presidents, the presidents have done previously, like Carter and like Reagan, and if I'm not mistaken, Bush Sr. as well, on several occasions. Hey, y'all knock it off or we're not going to send you weapons. We don't need to do somebody say, hey, come on, guys, we'll go attack Iran later, or hey, we'll destabilize this later, or hey, we'll give you this over here if you stop doing this. That was the Joe Biden way of doing things. That didn't do anything. What Donald Trump did is he said to them behind closed doors through intermediaries, he said, "You're going to stop this, or we're going to stop supporting you," because that's the only thing that stops them. That's the only thing that's ever. That's the only tool that American presidents have ever had in the past to stop them from doing stuff. With the exception of things like the 1973 agreement with Egypt to, hey, we're going to bribe you, and we're going to bribe this, and here's that money, and here's this tank, and there's these airplanes. But for the most part, it's whenever Israel gets too uppity and too crazy, it's, hey, knock it off, or we're going to stop sending you toys.
And I think the only way to tell them
Iran.
properly knock it off is by basically posting something what Jeffrey Sachs just did.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think you're right in terms of America wants to pressure them. They're saying we're going to cut funding. I mean, Biden did that with limiting certain kinds of bombs, and that happens. I understand. But I feel like, and I would love to believe what you're saying is entirely true, but I just feel like Israel is so intertwined with the American economy and businesses. The leverage they have over Americans is so much that
They were. That changed very quickly in the span of about a few months here. You notice that Trump, even though Congress banned TikTok, Trump is now publicly coming out and saying, I'm going to pass executive orders on day one to delay it for 90 days. The whole reason for banning TikTok has nothing to do with China, has everything to do with the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt's pressure.
I saw that video.
Pressure.
Right. Oh, what was that guy? Greenblatt?
TikTok just came back on.
Greenblatt, yeah.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Oh,
breaking news.
What?
Oh, yeah.
What's
TikTok
that?
came back on. No, but and you know what? I want to say this though. Let's talk about TikTok can we talk about TikTok for a moment? Okay.
Did it really just come back on, or are you just saying that?
No, it just came on.
Let me verify.
Trump-alicious.
Sim is a novice TikTok user.
Our hero, Trumpalicious.
Maybe TikTok is trying to let people.
Oh, it's on.
Oh, you got some girl shaking.
I don't know. It's just playing with my rent in my free head or something. Okay.
Anyway,
listen.
No. But here's the thing. What the United States is doing with TikTok is actually a very, this might not be a popular opinion, but it's actually a very smart move. In order to get TikTok, first of all, China bans all kinds of different social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, etc., in their
Google.
country, right? Well, that's fine. Okay, you can do that, but the Americans can do that too, because what they do is they ban Facebook and whatever, and then they create their own versions of it.
So I'll tell you the problem. I'll tell you the problem with this. I understand the argument. Hey, if you turn off things and ban American products, we can ban Chinese products, right? Understood. But I think this is deeper than that, and I'll tell you why. And when I say deeper, I mean the problem with that is this. First of all, let's rewind for a moment. America is not China, right? Meaning that we're not worried about...
We're a free market.
Yeah, we're free. I'm saying we're going based on principles, right? I'm not talking about actuality here, right? On paper, what we present to the world, what we present out there, we're a free market system. You can ban if you want, but we want to allow it because, we want free market, right? But here's the other thing. If you're arguing, there's people arguing that China is a threat to American and national security, and the CCP owns the parent company of TikTok, which is in fact not entirely true. It's owned, it's owned by 20% Chinese entrepreneurs who own it. And here's the kicker: there are American investment funds like BlackRock, Great Atlantic, or whatever investment group, and I forgot another one. There's three major ones that have like holdings in TikTok. And if you're going to say TikTok is a threat because of affiliation with China, right? What are the laws regarding companies that invest in companies or groups that are aiding and propping up a nation or an entity that is a threat to national security? Are there not financial rules, banking rules? Are they not? What about data privacy? What about the data stored in TikTok within American servers on Oracle or public cloud platforms like AWS or Google Cloud? Right? Are they accountable for aiding a nation that has an interest against America? I mean, how far do you go with this?
Yeah. No, it doesn't. The argument that to ban TikTok doesn't make sense on paper. It's just a smart move in the way
Yes.
to acquire a
Pressure.
very valuable technology and have it in American hands, not because that the whole justification
Yes.
for the ruling is
It's the
actually
power
just-
move.
They're trying to pivot off of this law that China has. I think it was, I can't remember when it was actually passed, but it basically allows the CCP to utilize the data that is collected by their companies for identifying threats and stuff like that. So they have the ability to use the data that TikTok is collecting on you for their own purposes if they identify a threat. So America does the same thing. It's not that America's not doing what they're doing. It's just that they don't want.
But America
China-
doesn't like that China gets to ban their apps.
Even then, it's
Right.
like it's
Yeah.
just an argument. It's
Yeah.
just anything to
No,
throw.
I mean what you're
Just an
saying. What you're
argument, I
saying
like
essentially,
that.
this is a power move by America to say, "Hey, we're going to try to strong arm you into taking over something that's very valuable to us."
It's very valuable because
I mean,
they're
Trump got 60 billion views on his messages. I mean, some estimates like that on TikTok.
yeah, and this TikTok is an algorithm that is miles and miles beyond any algorithm that American companies have. This is an algorithm that is basically saying why it's so valuable is because it knows exactly what you like. You watch a video while it's scrolling of a girl shaking her hips just a little too longer. It identifies that, hey, you kind of like this, and it shows you another video.
Yeah, but the thing about TikTok, it doesn't just fill it. It does it periodically. So you're not just going to see that all the time. They're going to throw it on other things. They force other they have this weird, it's really golden where if you did that, they're not just going to flood it. It's not going to be like Facebook where everything pops up of now big booty
Yeah.
now, right? It's just going to be fed in like organically in
Yeah.
a way.
With other things, other connections,
Yeah.
cars,
Right. Oh, yeah,
economy,
other
that just
stuff.
constantly lighten you up.
Yeah, it's a very intelligent like learning algorithm.
That's
It
crazy.
figures out, okay, well, he doesn't want to watch this all the time, but he wants to watch other stuff too.
We know it can
So-
get his interest.
Yeah, and how to keep him continuously on our
So
app.
why that's important is because it keeps people scrolling.
Yeah.
Because if you lose interest of a certain, like for example, if you just flood someone with big booties, right? Even if you like them, right? I mean, whatever the topic is right here, right? Eventually, he's gonna get tired of scrolling for big booties. Right?
I like how everything became about
No,
business.
he gets right. So what happens is that he starts. If you show him a cool car in between, or you show him like some cool how to do video, or some fitness guy, or based on other little things that he likes to look at, right? Then it doesn't make it so overwhelming.
Yeah.
It just becomes part of a normal feed, like a cycle it goes
Addictive.
through.
Makes it addictive, yeah.
Yeah, right. You get to keep scrolling because
Yeah.
you're constantly engaged with different aspects of your brain,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Mort,
what they
I'm
want
gonna
to
have to. I'm gonna have to agree with you at least partially on that. I don't think the government should ban it, but I got off of TikTok myself because it is a massive fitness machine. It is just, and that was the app where I had so many women just throwing themselves at me randomly and
Nice.
DMing me about the most personal things about their failing marriages, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be a little too much here. You know, way more than anything.
Wait,
X is not
Indonesian
like
woman?
that. Indonesian and American women,
Oh,
all
wow.
the above. Yeah, so X is not like that in the same way. Even Facebook is not like that in the same way. Instagram and then TikTok in particular, like you said, more, it has a very addictive formula to keep you hooked in, and it can draw you in the wrong kind of ways very subtly without you really even realizing it. So you are correct. That is why I got off of it, because I was like, this is going to get me in a lot of trouble.
You know, one thing I like about being
This is
about
gonna get me in a lot
boomer,
of trouble.
about being an old guy. These things I get bored of them real quick. Like I can scroll on X for a little bit and TikTok for a little bit, and I get bored. I'm like, all right, I'm done. Like I put my phone down. I'm like, I had enough, right? But I understand why it's addicting. I mean, it is. I mean, like for example, if you're just at work or you're just on a conference call or something, right? And you just that's great. Like me and Sim will just basically send each other. If you see our like Instagram messages. It's
It's comedy.
It's like pure comedy, right? All this dumbest stuff in the world, right? We're just laughing at it, chuckling in meetings, right? But people do that with other things, right? And that this is why it's addicting. It taps into that. it makes a variety of things that you can find so entertaining. But here's what I will say.
Yeah, I would love to know if it was banned for a couple weeks, just to see how much productivity levels increase in the country.
But do you know why? But
Right.
here's the thing: the
Okay,
reason why I think that TikTok will. Now we talk about the negative side, right? But TikTok definitely has its positives. It has allowed many small businesses to generate money. It has changed the conversations that people have about personal health issues. Like I've uncovered people on Pal Talk with on TikTok that I've never knew existed in my life. Like and they're talking about it casually, and that's one thing that looped me in. Like people with stage 4 cancer, people with like all kinds of weird diseases, like where they're born with some disformities, and they're talking and they're expressing, and you get this firsthand personal insight into people that you probably wouldn't have had in other areas, right? And the reason why it happened more in here is because the algorithm allowed you to see these things because the way it forced it through. It's just this organic algorithm. I would have never clicked on these other videos in my life ever, but it just showed me in such an organic manner that I just, let me see what they're saying. Let me see what it is. And I think in that regard, it has created communities that didn't exist before. And that's one positive aspect of TikTok. I think it created a marketplace for people to sell goods, to generate online income, and also for communities that didn't really have a place that promoted their causes or their topics, right? Like you can have communities on Facebook, on X or whatever, but the level of promotion and visibility they got was not the same as on TikTok. That's what I will say about it.
Here are some live scenes out of Gaza I want to share with you guys.
By the way, when you share that, I also sent a video of a live scene of the forces pulling out of Gaza.
Oh,
Put
okay.
it in the group chat.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, share it with me.
I did. It's already in the group chat.
Oh,
In a
perfect.
team. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Who's Zaghari?
Good for them.
Who's
I
Zaghari?
think it's Zaghari are the people that are celebrating, make the noise when they celebrate.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, people. The group.
Yeah.
There's a group.
It's a sign of celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm not new to the
jubilation.
Middle
Yeah.
East, unlike you, Sheikh.
Can you do a Zagruta for us?
No, I'm not going to do that. But I do have a question. I think, like you said, I think it's really important to stop and just have some joy because the people of Palestine have joy. We've come to a point where we realize that just trying to uncover a potential, conspiracy behind all of this is just to, first and foremost, just, alhamdulillah, they're happy for right now. Let's just be happy with them.
Yeah.
Right? But meanwhile, I haven't heard too many people, and I'm not as social as you guys. I'm not on social media as much as you guys. But how many people are actually talking about this and have a good understanding of what this is about right now? What do you think?
The ceasefire?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty popular at the moment, but I think what people are very unclear about is what are the exact phases in the deals. But I did some research to try to find out what it looks like. But yeah, I think the conditions are relatively ambiguous for most people because most organizations are not publishing these details about what it is. But yeah, I mean, there are details out there.
But does this mean that humanitarian organizations can go in a lot easier now?
Yeah.
So they're going to be opening the Rafah crossing.
They've already opened it.
Yeah, I mean so let me rephrase that. As part of the deal was they were going to open the Rafah crossing, and to allow the aid work to happen.
And the reason I'm asking that more, sorry to cut you off.
trucks a day.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking that is I just want to know, other than just happiness that's being reached to them, what other benefits is it coming with?
Okay, so let me try to cover what I know. Maybe here you might have some more. But there's going to be about I think a total in the end. I think they're giving up the initial phase 1 is 38 or 40 hostages they're going to go over, mainly children and sick and women and sick and elderly. In response, Israel's going to free about 1,800 prisoners from their prisons. They're going to transfer over in northern Gaza. The IDF is going to help, and they're going to limit. I mean, Hamas is actually going to transfer over. They're going to limit their weapons, whatever. They're going to eventually withdraw from Gaza completely. They're going to move out of the Philadelphia corridor in phases. They're going to open the Rafah crossing as part of this phase 1 to allow aid in. Phase 2 means that they're going to return the men of this area, and then there'll be more, concessions in terms of Israel moving out of Gaza. And then phase 3 is they're going to return the dead bodies of hostages they have. And then there's going to be a talk of reconstruction, what that looks like of Gaza. I don't know if that means by the Israelis or like who can help with the reconstruction. They haven't. What I find the most interesting about all of this is that, and this is where I think Israel takes a big L. There's no mention of who's going to govern Gaza.
That's it. That's why they lost,
right?
They didn't get the objective done.
And I think and that's one of the reasons why I'll give it to you here right now. I think that's one of the reasons why Netanyahu is embattled right now with his right-wing coalition, because people like Ben Gvir are like, hey man, if you do this ceasefire, all that we did is lost, and I'm going to withdraw from this.
I remember that.
I'm going to withdraw from your coalition. So it's a lot going on. But go ahead, Harry. That's all I got for this right now.
No, I was just agreeing with you, man. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. In fact, I read, and somebody needs to verify this. I read on X that Mr. Gvir has already submitted his resignation. So unless there's some other way to beef up this coalition, that's it. You know,
you know what I found really interesting too? Did you see the Emir of Qatar, by the way, and the Qatari negotiators talking about this, Harry? Did you see their conversations about this, the interviews?
Yes.
Crazy how, first of all, it said that, it's funny because it shut down any conversation, number one, about Biden taking credit for this. Flat out, they said the Trump administration did more in 1 week than the entire Biden administration did in one entire year.
That's
right?
Crazy.
The second thing I noticed was the Emir of Qatar was talking about the whole issue, and he says this very same deal was on the table in December of 2023, about 13 months ago. It was on the table. Exact same deal. Why is that a big thing to say? Because what that means is bad news for Netanyahu. Because the people inside that have been begging him to do a ceasefire, citizens, when they find out that this has been there for 13 months and countless IDF soldiers died and hostages died, they're going to say, what the hell? Your coalition is collapsing, right? You were going to do it anyways. You were worried before that your coalition was going to collapse, but you did it anyways now. Why didn't you do this 13 months ago? It just...
No, he's in a lot of trouble.
He's in trouble. Like, he's in hot water right now.
Yeah,
if I were Bibi Netanyahu, I would be getting my second passport to Buenos Aires, go over to Miami, pick up my son.
You know what I would do?
Oh, he has his internal... he's supposed to be facing charges in Israel, and he's been delaying that through this war.
You know what I do? And you know what I would do if I was Netanyahu? I would say, listen, in exchange for my pardon, I will leave the country. I will leave Israel.
Exile.
But yeah, he'll have to be exiled into the United States because he's considered a war criminal in most countries.
Well, maybe Paris will take him.
Yeah, I think France and the United States are,
Germany,
and the UK.
Germany too.
Germany, right? Yeah.
Germany is just still feeling sad about what they did.
They're still paying reparations. Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, I think in summary, I think this is a big L for the Likud. I mean, if anything, and I want to stress that because, in being honest and fair and transparent, Israel is not a monolithic society. Right? There are people in there who want different things and have different objectives. But one thing for sure is the Likud party is a radical right-wing form of Zionism that is perpetually behind these constantly pushing the idea of war and eradication of Palestinian people. They don't want any peace. They are one of the biggest roadblocks behind any two-state solution is the Likud party and ones like that, even the more radical. But this all happening right now is a severe damage to this entire radical right-wing coalition in Israel radical right-wing Zionist coalition in Israel. And how is that going to shape out now? I think that's what we need to sit back and see how this plays out.
Man, this can go in so many different directions. It's crazy.
Changes are coming.
Yeah. Changes are coming, but,
I wish I knew what they were. I mean, but I don't know. Apparently, like, even, I don't know if you heard this, Harry, but even, like, they're distrusting of Israeli intelligence agents, potentially thinking there may be some way to remove Netanyahu out of the way.
Oh, yes. In fact, one of the things... Do you remember that Discord server fiasco that happened in, like, not October 7th, but before October 7th? There were a bunch of anti-Bibi protests over the Israeli Supreme Court mix-up.
The overhaul, right?
Before October 7th, Bibi was trying to overhaul the Supreme Court so that they were less powerful, and they would have made him far more powerful in Israeli politics.
Yeah.
So there was a Discord server leak from an Air Force reservist, if I recall correctly, here in the States. He was on this Discord game server, and of all places, he decided to leak all these documents from the Pentagon, where the Pentagon knew that Mossad was trying to exacerbate some of the protests to get Bibi overthrown, because they saw that Bibi and his coalition were going to cause a bunch of extra chaos. So this is why I agree with Scott Ritter that while Congress may have always been bought out by the Zionists for the last decade or so, the Pentagon is not. And even Mossad is not, to some extent, in that they realize that Bibi and his coalition of crazies are going to drag the country into absolute and total ruin. People like Mossad, the old school, more left-wing secular Jews, those people are not as messianic and crazy in their aims. They are much more rational and methodical.
Well, Harry, I think
they don't like Ben-Gvir.
I think it's common sense, right? Because their objective is not just power; their objective is longevity and stability to the nation, right? Same thing with the Pentagon.
They're not
the Pentagon is not a bunch of politicians. They are people that are worried about American interest and longevity, right? So they're going to make more rational, calculated decisions.
Yes.
Right? And so this is no different for the Mossad agencies or Shin Bet, right? They're going to make rational, calculated, and you know what? If you don't line up with the odds, well, see you later.
Yeah.
You know, you got to go.
And they don't have to answer to something like AIPAC, you know. It's not like
what is AIPAC going to tell Mossad anyways? You know what I mean? Like,
no, I mean the Pentagon. Pentagon doesn't have to get.
True.
They don't have to get reelected every 2 to 4 years.
Exactly. You can't buy them.
You can't buy them like the same way. You buy them in other ways, but not through AIPAC.
Ali Abu Nima, who's the head of the Electronic Intifada, and coincidentally, also from Chicago, native Chicagoan, he writes, the enemy did not achieve a single one of its claimed goals in this genocide. No prisoner released by force. That was one of the objectives of Israel, that we're going to go ahead and free them by ourselves. The Gaza government remains intact and functioning, so they weren't able to get rid of Hamas, as we mentioned earlier. The resistance has its fighters, weapons, and underground infrastructure. Total failure, and that in itself is a huge victory.
And you know what I think? I think is really telling, and we just touched on this lightly, but I think it's important to highlight here. Anthony Blinken comes out after his visit to the Middle East and says Hamas has recruited just as many soldiers as were killed. As fighters, he said. I'm sorry. Think about that. Right? You spent, what was it, 18 months? Right? Or no, 15 months? Whatever it was. Trying to just pulverize Hamas. Weaken them and deter anybody from wanting to join them. Right? That was the whole plan. That Hamas is bad news for you. If you side with you voted for Hamas, well, this is what happens to you. You want to be on the Hamas's team, this is what happens to you.
This is
why did you allow
and what happens?
Let's
same numbers.
Let's play this from Max Blumenthal, from the Gray Zone. He goes off at Blinken in a press
You
conference.
kept the bombs
I'm happy to
flowing.
address
Why did you
questions when we get a
sacrifice
chance.
the
Thank you.
rules-based order on the mantle of your commitment to Zionism?
Sorry.
Why did you
No,
allow my
time for
friends to be
questions.
massacred?
I'm
Why
sorry.
did you allow
I'm
my
happy to
friends' homes
address,
in Gaza to be
questions
destroyed when we had a
I'm sorry,
deal
I'm gonna have to ask
in
you.
May?
I'm
You
sorry.
you helped
No.
destroy our religion,
I'm sorry.
Judaism, by associating
Yeah,
it with
yeah,
fascism.
We'll
have the time
You
to take
waved the
questions.
white flag before
We'll have the time to take
Netanyahu.
questions at the end.
You waved the white flag before Israeli
We'll have
fascism.
I
the
look
time
forward
to
to
take
taking
questions
Your
at the end.
father-in-law was an
Finish my
Israel
statement.
lobbyist. Your
Thank you.
grandfather was an Israel lobbyist. Are you compromised by Israel? Why did you allow the Holocaust of our time to happen? How does it feel to have your legacy be genocide? How does it feel to have your legacy be genocide? You too, Matt. You smirk through the whole thing every day. Smirk through a genocide.
That's anti-Semitic, sir.
That's-
Even though you're a Jew, that's anti-Semitic.
He's. I commented underneath that. I told him you're a total G, bro.
Yeah.
That was so awesome.
Yeah.
This is one of the things
There
I
was no
tell
words
people-
wasted.
Yeah,
He said
and-
everything he needed to say.
Yeah, but Matt, for those who don't know, Max is a Jewish man. He's a journalist who's been on point this whole year and a half, where he's been reporting accurate news through the Gray Zone and many other people as well. And you saw in that same frame the guy from Ryan Grimm from Dropsite News. He was right next to him. But all these people, everyone is seeing it and recording it, and they're like, yo, you guys are committing a genocide. You're the spokesperson. You're going to be talked about in the annals of history forever as being associated with this. Imagine being associated with this. This is going to be your legacy. Like, wow. How, to what extent are you prepared to sacrifice for Israel? You have to make, I think where the movement goes from here is make it so that it's untenable.
So appalling.
It's untenable. You can't hold this love for Israel like you used to. You just can't.
No, you can't.
It's just too risky of a political move. And I think Joe Biden had learned that the severe way.
It has to be
And
reversed.
Kamala.
Oh, go ahead, Harry.
I said October 8th, and some people agreed with me and some did not, that this was the beginning of the end for Israel, because I had been paying attention to the grassroots of the Gen Z, the white people Gen Z, and also the working class Gen Z,
White Z.
conservative young men, the white Z, which is that it was before I knew that this was a generational shift coming. And that we're in the fourth generational turning, and this was the time for them. It's not millennials. We're not the generation turners. It's the Gen Z kids. Those are the fourth generational turning. That is the defining generation, Gen Z, not millennial. And the millennials and half of the Gen Z and half the millennials were done with Israel before October 7th even happened. And that just exacerbated everything. And that's why they said on the leaked AIPAC conference call, we have a major problem. It's not right versus left, it's generational.
Yeah.
So even before October 7th, I knew that was coming. You know, I knew about this when I got back from Iraq 2009. I mean, I started reading books like John Mersheimer's The Israel Lobby. I read
The Holocaust Industry.
Imperial Hubris by Michael Scheuer, former CIA head of the Bin Laden unit.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So I
he used to come on CNN
I
a
was
lot.
already. I did a podcast with Michael Scheuer, by the way.
Nice.
Great dude.
Good dude.
Yeah, it was a good dude. Great dude.
He's smart, man.
Brilliant man. Man. Dr. Scheuer is a great man. I'd love to have him on the show sometime.
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
Right. He's
if you're listening, Dr. Scheuer, we'd love to have you on. But anywho, I was a weirdo 10, 15 years ago. I was an outcast. And alhamdulillah, everybody is finally seeing what outsider, weirdo, fringe people like me, quote unquote, saw. And it's here. This is here. It's here. It's no going back. Dude, there's no putting the cat back in this bag.
I think what Sim is mentioning though is that what the trend that's happening is that it's making you uncomfortable in your skin with supporting Zionism. Like,
yes, and that's why the trend is it's here. The
basically,
cat's out of the bag.
what it was to be labeled a Nazi or anti-Semite, right? It's going to be the same thing when you call a Zionist, right? You say someone's a Zionist, oh my God, I don't want to be that. Like, don't call me a homophobe. Don't call me a Zionist. Don't call me a Nazi. Right? Like, that's just what it's gonna be.
Yeah, but you put it perfectly. There here's a our guy Abu Ubeda is there in the street celebrating. He's the guy who, if you're not familiar with him, gave all the updates throughout for the resistance throughout the conflict. But there he is. All the fighters, all the resistance fighters are all out on the street right now. So
is this like a show of force for them too?
Well, they're the ones who did the fight.
No, but I mean, is it also a show of force that, hey, you know what? Like, 'cause I think they're also strategic
it's
too.
A
like,
show, it's a show of defiance.
Yeah, but like, hey, Israel, we're prepared to go on if you don't want to.
That's what you mean.
Right, I mean, I think we're still here. Like, we're still in our uniforms. We're still ready to go in case something pops off.
Well, so connected to that, don't you think it was kind of reckless of Blinken saying that the amount of people that died? That's
no. I don't think it's. I think his point being is that it's expedient that Israel does this because you're not beating Hamas.
That's the main point.
Yeah,
but I'm saying for people who are just observing, that's like, dude, this is like Israel's never going to be the same.
I think it's even more of a justification to accept a ceasefire.
Oh, of course, but I'm saying that even though they accept a ceasefire, but the amount that they've churned and the amount of fighters and amount of PR that's been done through this oppression. Dude, this is like astronomical compared to what people always thought.
But for me, I mean, yeah, I think maybe the common folk thinking about this, but I think most think tanks, most political analysts knew this would happen.
Oh, they knew, yeah.
Like, when you bomb a civilian, I mean, Hamas fighters today were children of people in the 60s who were incarcerated and killed, right? You created a generation of resistance fighters. You're only creating another future generation of resistance fighters. They're not going to stop. You talk about a guy who watched his family get massacred. Do you think he's going to stop fighting for you?
I mean, they have nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah. Like now you just basically, I mean, it's done and signed. Like, you've got another Hamas member. When you kill a kid's family, you kill a kid's father, his mother, his brother, you've got yourself another Hamas fighter.
Yeah. They're going to hit 10 times harder too.
Yeah.
If they need to. Wow, man. I mean, it's I think it's a great sign to see all of this, but
I think though, sorry to interrupt, I was just thinking here that I think the now though is that with all this momentum is what do you do from here? It doesn't, because obviously it doesn't end here, right? Netanyahu is hinting constantly that this is temporary, right? But how do you capitalize on events that have taken place now to further the pressure? Right, because what happens is when they hear ceasefire, a lot of people take the foot off the gas, right? Like, we got it, right? But people familiar with the conflict know that, hey, Ramadan's coming along. Every Ramadan, something pops off, like clockwork, right? So I think for me, I guess what I'm thinking about, or what I'm trying to have some foresight into, is, okay, we know the enemy. And we know their MO. This is not going to end today, right? It's Netanyahu one day, Ben-Gvir one day, and some other party the next day. It could be a Baruch Goldstein. It could be a Kahani, Mar Kahani. Who cares? There's someone that's going to be there, right? But how do we keep the eyes on the prize, right? Like on the right way. How do we continue to motivate people to say, hey, Palestine has to have a state.
Yeah.
They have to have autonomy, right? I think that's because I think right now a lot of people had coordination because the whole idea was stop bombing, stop genocide, right? Everybody can agree. But now what? What do you do with those people, right? What do you do now?
I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't think the solution is to try and get a Palestinian state at this point. 2 years ago, as much as I didn't like Israel, even back then, I was still a believer that, okay, well, maybe because of these crazy demographics, these Orthodox Jews that don't want to serve in the IDF, maybe they'll eventually be forced to accept a two-state solution as more and more people become aware. But the reality is, at this point, I think the more likely outcome is that the state of Israel is just going to disintegrate.
Yep, I agree.
So we can definitely put our chips into trying to get a state for Palestinians. But I think we really need to focus more on just making the state of Israel go away.
That's
we're already doing it.
Great.
You know,
That's such
I
a
think
good
it's,
point.
you know, it just needs to go. There's no
So
reconciliation.
you're saying rather than trying to get a state, just dismantle the current state and let the chaos ensue and let something come out of the
But
ashes.
they already
Yeah.
did all the work. They already did all the work
because-
to themselves. They already destroyed
because-
50% of what they had.
No, but I mean, what he's saying is that whatever effort you
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
like talk about it, highlight it. Like, I mean, I don't think he's meaning to go over there and fight Israel, but I think what he's trying to say is that continue to boycott, continue to talk about it, continue to put pressure, make it uneasy to be a Zionist.
Yeah.
Like, you mean in that sense, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't see any good reason to boycott like McDonald's and Coca-Cola. I mean, Harris in the group chat pointed out that McDonald's Corporation has already bought back
All the
most of
franchises,
all the franchises. So I eat at McDonald's now again because why am I going to keep punishing McDonald's?
Yeah.
There's
You
no
should
reason.
reward those people actually and say, "Hey, look, you did the good thing.
Exactly.
Let us help you." Right? I mean, like,
I've been eating McDonald's this whole week.
hell yeah, chicken
Thank
number
you.
10, right? The nugget meal.
I need that filet fish, man. I don't. That filet
Triple
fish was.
cheeseburger, baby.
I missed that, bro.
It's a go-to on the hungry day.
You can't duplicate it. And I love cooking.
And
man.
that McDonald's Coke, man.
There's some
There's
secret
something about that
sauce in
McDonald's
that. In
soda.
that
Oh, there's a lot of
in
secret
that,
stuff
in
going
that
on in
mayo
there, bro.
that makes that.
All that
filet
tartar
fish
sauce?
so
Even their bread.
Yeah, that
too.
tartar
Their bread
sauce is
crazy.
You
Even
can't-
those sticks to
I
your
think for
teeth, you're like,
Americans,
oh,
the
man.
best option is to really, at this point, to really go boycott politicians, and we need to use X in particular, whatever we can, to laser focus on congressional races and Senate races. Both the Democrats and the Republicans saw what happened. Trump saw what happened. People like Thomas Massey are already in the game. People on the Democrat side, you saw Bernie Sanders is finally, really coming around completely. Like it's
In what
those
way?
are smart. He's like he said, we can't support the send them weapons anymore. This is clearly a genocide. He's not mincing words before
Okay.
like he was. So I think we've got in 2 years if we keep up the cultural pressure, which is at this point more important than the financial pressure because Israel's economy is already destroyed. If we keep up the cultural and political pressure, we can really start laser focusing and going after AIPAC-sponsored politicians. 2 years from now, we need to be having Muslim Americans, but not just Muslims, anybody who is saying, pledging that I will not take money from AIPAC because I don't touch 14-year-old girls on Epstein's Island, that's the person who you need to vote for. Even if you don't agree with them on other things, you need to weigh it, use your value system, weigh it here. But that's what we need to do. We
But
need to get
Harry,
into these
how do
Senate
you
races and get
how do you tackle though? So I think for the rational, I mean for the mind that understands, I don't want to say. Let me rephrase that. For the person approaching this from a religious perspective, what you're saying makes sense. But what about the evangelical right that no matter what, the hand of God is over Israel, right?
Oh, that's a good question. I got a perfect answer for that. Even amongst the evangelicals, it is a hard generational split. And so most of the evangelical church is actually dying. The place where you see the church in America reviving, oddly enough, is amongst trad Catholic parishes and Eastern Orthodox Christians. Like the Eastern Orthodox churches that I used to be a part of 10, 15 years ago, I was once again a fringe weirdo in that place too. Now, I wouldn't be a fringe weirdo. There's a lot of people who have joined the Eastern Orthodox Church who have left Protestantism because it was either too loosey-goosey LGBT friendly or because it was too Zionist. The Gen Zers, the younger millennials, those people are all moving over to alternative forms of Christianity, or if they're staying Protestant evangelical, they're not pro-Israel anymore. So once again, that same generational split is happening in the same way. And, because of this dam break of information and just cultural pressure, even many boomers and many Gen Xers in the evangelical community now realize that Israel's not our friend. So those people don't have the same sway and influence and power that they had before. partially because many of them have already changed their minds. I mean, I had Jory Meek on the show. I did a one-on-one interview with her. There's a lot of evangelical younger people between the ages of 45 to 25 that have done a lot in the church to really speak out against Zionism and this nonsense, and they're really taking hold. Their words have power, and it has changed a lot of minds, especially when I talk about, again, that big old generational split. So one way or the other, that's going away.
Yeah, and
that's why I'm saying this political and cultural pressure is going to fix this.
Yeah, and people are really they've identified people who have used TikTok have identified that it is because of the pressure from the Zionist lobby that has caused their favorite app to disappear.
Oh yes,
yeah.
It's like if you are on TikTok, you don't have to be even following anything really pro-Palestine, but you would have come across some real
content,
some real commenting about how this never happened. This wasn't never an issue, or it became an issue or bigger issue much right after October 7th, right? It was talked about before in the first Trump presidency. There were a few congressmen who were bringing it up and stuff, and Trump was also as well was worried about the data that TikTok was collecting. And there were many cybersecurity teams. I'm in cybersecurity, and we were discussing what kind of data TikTok collects and stuff. And many people came to the agreement that it's pretty much the same as what Facebook and Instagram was collecting, the metadata in itself. It's no more invasive as any other social media app. But the concern later became much more highlighted after October 7th. And they saw people reading Osama bin Laden's letter on air and stuff. And you saw, this pressure from congressmen to bring TikTok's assets and stuff and have them being housed in Oracle data warehouses in the United States. And by the way, those data warehouses are also Zionist owned.
Larry Ellison.
Yeah.
You know what? Also, I don't know. Did any of you guys watch the congressional hearings with the CEO of TikTok?
Oh yeah.
The funniest thing.
Wait, the one that took place like 6 months ago?
Yeah, he's like, if I put my headphone in, can you read what's happening in my brain?
Yeah.
Like stupid things like, does TikTok access Wi-Fi? And the guy's like, well, if you put it on, it's gonna connect.
Who was that? Tom Cotton who was asking?
Yeah, and he's like, are you part of the CCP? He's like, I'm Singaporean. I served in the Singaporean military for 2 years. It was just the funniest thing.
It's a nice circus to watch. It's really fun.
And like these are the guys that are threatening. And I heard some conversation like, oh, TikTok allows pedophilia.
Reserving the right to object, which I most certainly do. TikTok isn't just another social media platform. TikTok is a Chinese communist spy app that addicts our kids, harvests their data, targets them with harmful and manipulative content, and spreads communist propaganda. Congress recognized the unique dangers of TikTok when we voted on a massive bipartisan basis last April.
Oh, this isn't the,
to give
the one. But this guy, Tom Cotton, he's a hardcore Zionist, huge AIPAC recipient. This guy has been incredibly pro-Zionist and fighting for whichever thing Zionism or AIPAC wants him to fight for. He will go to war for that.
When did this video take place? The one that you just posted right now? How long was that?
This was, can't remember. But it was a little over a year ago.
Okay, got it.
Let me see if I can find that on TikTok. Now let's back up because the guy had it on there. I know.
Oh, here we go.
On TikTok.
I can't remember the details.
It's
another company. So then it was overturned. I can't remember the details. It's another company.
The Biden administration that reversed those sanctions, just like, by the way, they reversed the terrorist designation on the Houthis in Yemen. How's that working out for them? But it was sanctioned as a Chinese communist military company. So you said today, as you often say, that you live in Singapore. Of what nation are you a citizen?
Singapore.
Are you a citizen of any other nation?
No, Senator.
Have you ever applied for Chinese citizenship?
Senator, I served my nation in Singapore. No, I did not.
Do you have a Singaporean passport?
Yes, and I served my military for two and a half years in Singapore.
Do you have any other passports from any other nation?
No, Senator.
Your wife is an American citizen. Your children are American citizens.
That's correct.
Have you ever applied for American citizenship?
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay. Clearly, you're a
Have you
communist.
ever been a
then.
member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Senator, I'm Singaporean. No.
Have you ever been associated or affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party?
No, Senator. Again, I'm Singaporean.
Let me ask you some hopefully simple questions. You said earlier, in response to your question, that what happened at Tiananmen Square in June of 1989 was a massive protest. Did anything else happen in Tiananmen Square?
Yes, I think it's well documented. There was a massacre.
There was an indiscriminate slaughter of hundreds or thousands of Chinese citizens. Do you agree with the Trump administration and the Biden administration that the Chinese government is committing genocide against the Uyghur people?
Senator, I've said this before. I think it's really important that anyone who cares about this topic or any topic can freely express themselves on TikTok.
It's a very simple question that unites both parties in our country and governments around the world. Is the Chinese government committing genocide against the Uyghur people?
Senator, anyone, including, you can come into TikTok and talk about this topic.
I'm asking you,
yes,
yes,
But what does that have to do with
you are a
TikTok being
worldly,
free?
cosmopolitan, well-educated man who's expressed many opinions on many topics. Is the Chinese government committing genocide against the Uyghur people?
Actually, Senator, I talk mainly about my company, and I'm here to talk about what
yes or
TikTok
no?
does.
Yes or no? You're here to give testimony that's truthful and honest and complete. Let me ask you this. Joe Biden last year said that Xi Jinping was a dictator. Do you agree with Joe Biden? Is Xi Jinping a dictator?
Senator, I'm not going to comment on any world leaders.
What?
This guy is.
But I'm saying, this is so stupid. Like if Joe Biden called Netanyahu a dictator, would you have to ask him that question now? And I would ask him well, do you believe that that Israel's committing genocide right now in Palestine? I just don't understand. This is my problem I have with these congressional hearings. They're not meant to talk about the issue. They're meant to character assassinate somebody.
Exactly.
Right? And then so they say, oh, look how bad this guy is. This is why we have to ban it. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't really do anything for the smart person or people who have any kind of 2 cents or even a minute level of intellect. What does that have to do with anything that TikTok is doing?
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's just to fill in cracks for the agenda. It's just like complete secondary, entertainment to fill in
One
cracks.
of the things you have to understand about Washington is how much things operate on groupthink. Where it's not necessarily that even they know why TikTok is bad, but it's just something that they're supposed to hold the line on. And you'll see this if you work in any kind of corporate environment, you'll see them holding the line on any particular issue, whether it's return back to the office, for example. They're wanting to get people who work from home coming back into the office. That's the marching orders that come, and everyone is just falls in line.
Yep.
And what you notice about this, at least, is that these people don't actually have any kind of structured arguments. They're not even ideologically sympathetic to Zionism. They just know the consequences.
That's a great observation.
They didn't know that, hey, if I don't support Israel, then they're going to fund my the opponent in the next election. So these are the things that you have to kind of understand or put into perspective, that it's not necessarily that there is a huge unified consensus. It's just people kind of surviving.
Consequence-based.
And they want to make sure that their career is okay. And that's how they're kind of operating in Washington.
Damn. What a horrible place to be, bro.
And you think they actually know about what the Uyghurs went through? You think...
Oh, they don't care about the Uyghurs.
They don't care about the Uyghurs. There's just a political point that they use. The Uyghurs are Muslims. They don't care about Muslim issues.
Uyghurs didn't
They only care about it when it matters to their national security.
Yeah. I'm saying it's just a convenient thing to mention, right? Just to say, oh, look how bad you are. See how good we are? We are against that stuff. Are you? Well, yeah. Well, what have you done against? Have you sanctioned China? If you really cared about it, right? Have you thrown some sanctions against them?
Yeah.
If they're causing a genocide.
Yeah.
I mean, you can call that a genocide. You can't call what happened.
So again, it's just words to frame a narrative and to character assassinate. Most of these people have no idea what they're talking about. They just give them talking points, and they know that, okay, this is what is a pro-Israeli talking point. These are anti-Israeli talking points. Anyone who makes a statement is probably anti-Israel. Anyone who makes a statement or has this view is probably pro-Israel. So you know what team to belong on.
Yeah. And I think all this tied in, since we're talking about Trump, like the inauguration, and the deportations, and how do we make sense of all this? There's so much happening on so many different levels, but
just let it play out.
Just let it play out. What do you think is going to happen on the inauguration?
It's gonna be a crazy week.
It's going to be a crazy week, right?
Yeah, I mean, not like violence wise, but it's gonna be a whole lot of things. It's gonna turn over some things. He's gonna start to you get the ice in play. I mean, yeah, there's gonna be meltdowns from the left. I mean, there's gonna be tons of stuff. It's gonna be a crazy week, full of jam packed action.
Yeah.
Do you guys think there's going to be other more attempts on his life or no?
I don't even think that first attempt was even real. I mean, just me.
No, I know. Yeah, I think that was a deep state type thing.
So,
but I'm just saying, again, regardless, I mean, he's going to be out in the open.
Let me tell you something.
I wouldn't put anything past Zionists and the Israelis. I am convinced that they were the ones behind JFK.
Yeah.
And I think the United States is that type of a country that will, even though the Israelis were behind, the USS Cole or Liberty and JFK or whatever, they'll protect them
regardless. Yeah.
Yeah, in that respect. So even if there is an attempt, they'll cover for them. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, this can be a crazy week, man. Yeah. On all levels.
I think one thing I learned from Trump is just take it day by day. Trump is that's the kind of guy he is, man.
Yeah.
Just take it day by day.
It's gonna be
Media will be fun again.
And what about deportation starting in Chicago?
I mean, hey, man. I mean, look, they're targeting the illegals. I mean, you know what it is when you come. If you're illegal, you're illegal, right?
Yeah.
It's a law, right? I mean, I just hope they do it the right way, follow the book and do it. But I mean, if you're taking legitimate illegals out of the country,
I think the timing was perfect for him to say it before his inauguration speech. Like he's really building up the excitement.
And
he's an entertainer.
I think it'll be done in a controlled fashion. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a government agency. There's accountability that has to be done.
I think a lot of it will be optics, though.
Yeah.
I think even Trump understands the need for illegals in this country. Right. It's not that
it'll be significantly scaled down.
It's not that he's for illegal immigration, but there is a need for it. It's evident in the United States. It's evident in Europe, and it's the dirty secret that nobody wants to talk about. Is because illegal immigration is indentured servitude. It's indentured slavery, and that's the dirty little thing that they don't want to talk about. They know that these people are the reasons why people are able to upgrade their homes, have all kinds of different new amenities. They drive the economic engine. Mm-hmm. People can't afford licensed, bonded contractors all the time, like wealthy people can. And companies like Home Depot, Menards, and all these different
it's not just homes, man. It's not just homes. Entire small businesses that operate from entire back rooms of illegals because they can't pay American workers.
Right.
Like, I mean, restaurants have they pay a full-time chef and a worker in the back of the line. Your restaurant be out of business.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't operate.
You're right.
I mean, there's just I hate to say that. It's not to say Americans are dumb or they can't do it, but they just don't want to work for that labor. It just and whatever it is, I'm saying maybe that could change if people want to get them out of here. I mean, you can force Americans to work, but it's just a dirty little secret that we have. We know that. Like, we know that many companies, many businesses, are small businesses use, illegal labor.
Yeah. Everybody wants to make a certain amount of money. That certain amount of money requires a certain type of effort. The effort that's required, the average American is not going to do.
And you know what's going to happen?
People that are willing to do it.
Even if you don't have illegals, right? Many companies will even pay legal people under the table cash.
Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure
because they can't afford to do business the other way.
Yeah.
So it's just
just ask Alabama. Alabama went strict, hardcore. We're not going to hire any more illegals. So many of their businesses, farms got shut down. They had labor shortages. Nobody wants to work in the fields, in slaughterhouses and stuff like that. That's hard work.
Oh yeah,
a lot of Americans don't want to do that. You see in the South. Well, I was just watching a documentary the other day, and the guy was traveling through Appalachia, and he was just talking to locals. He's a white guy, and and he's just talking to them and trying to get a feel for what the economic situation's like. And many of these towns have been shut down after the coal company left or something like that.
Yeah.
And people are all on food stamps, and they're all collecting government subsidies or some kind of payment from the government. They've figured out loopholes to say that they're disabled, so they're getting disability payments sometimes, and it's all across Appalachia like this. It's
and those people
wild.
look. The reason I was laughing is there's people that are actually missing. the illegal workers working
Well,
because
it's the funny thing is that the argument is used against the illegals that they're the ones who are like, no, they're not. It's regular Americans who are the ones who are abusing the system.
yeah.
They're not. They're actually working.
No, they are actually working.
It's a little more complicated than that because it is true that no one wants to do that work. That is true. But as someone who used to do a lot of hardcore blue collar work myself, from truck driving and beyond, and you have Malachi Click in the comments section. He'll tell you the same thing. A lot of these companies, what they do now, the big box companies like Sierra England, U.S. Express, they just hire people with barely qualified from foreign countries, and they pay them a third or a half of what American truckers used to get paid 20 years ago when adjusted for inflation. So it is true that nobody wants to do that kind of work. Like, who wants to do hard backbreaking work? But people will do it if the welfare state is more limited and if they're paid properly to do it, to live a decent quality of life. Because otherwise, why bother? It just, it's not simply that people are lazy or entitled or this, that, and the other. It's a question of where are you putting the incentives. This is why, we always hear all these terrible stereotypes about black people in Chicago. Single moms on welfare, daddy's not in the house, gang violence, broken families, all kinds of crazy stuff, out of wedlock babies. Well, why is that? Because black people were not like that 100 years ago.
Yeah.
As Thomas Sowell points out, who is blacker than the Ace of Spades himself. Black people 100 years ago were more Christian, more ethical, and more family-oriented than many white folks.
Yeah.
What happened is black people left the South and moved up north, and they were once again put in a sort of quasi-apartheid situation, a quasi-segregationist situation, with a smile, with a liberal smile,
Yeah.
And what happened is, instead of being like, all right, you black folk, you gonna be on this side of the street over here, and that's your cafe over there, what they said is, hey, we'll give you welfare if you're a single mom. And so financial incentives, at first it started with black men would just stay in their house like once or twice a week and sleep on the couch, and then they go off to get welfare because they couldn't get a job up in Chicago because there's discrimination up here. Oh, surprise, Northerners are racist too. But then it turned into this thing where women are like, my husband's a jerk. I could just become a welfare queen. And it just became like a generational cyclical thing. So,
and the more kids I have, the more money I can get.
The more kids they have, the more money they have. So it's not about, are black people inherently lazy? No. Black people weren't like this 100 years ago. Are white people in West Virginia inherently lazy? No, not really. They weren't like this 100 years ago either. It's about what do you provide as incentives. And the reason that Uncle Elon and all these tech oligarchs like the H-1B visas is not, I'm okay, yeah, there's some foreign talent that we need. I'm sure there's like 1 or 2%, but like how many top scientists from, and then you think about how the Chinese and Indian students that scam their way to the top too. There's a lot of smart, hardworking people of all races, colors, and creeds right here in good old Los Estados Unidos. But Uncle Elon and his tech overlord bros, they don't want to pay people. They want a tech feudalism.
Well, I think, Harry, the problem you're fundamentally describing is that's capitalism. Yeah. Why pay more for when you don't need it? I mean, when you can get, we can get it for less, right? That's inherently the model here, right? I'm going to maximize my profits and spend the less overhead, right? If I can get an H-1B visa to code for me, it's subpar coding and have one, for example, in IT, I can have one main guy in America and have 10, 15 subpar coders in India, and then have this one guy overcheck everything, and I'm paying what I would pay 2 developers in America, I'm getting 10 in India.
Yeah.
Right, or I'm bringing them here to America and paying them for 4 of them. I'm paying for 1 salary, right? Like it's just the nature of capitalism. It's business.
It is the nature. It is the nature markets for you to go whatever you can get the best at the cheapest quality possible. However, when these same corporations take massive government subsidies, tax breaks to do what they do compared to other industries, when these governments get certain protections like Facebook and the other ones got to not be treated as a publisher, for example, not be held liable as such. At some point, the tech bro oligarchs are going to have to accept that we, the people, have a right to place certain restrictions on what they do. And, when you talk about a nation state, what you're talking about is communal property. So capitalism also ties in with property rights, right? Did I lose you guys? Did we lose?
No, we're listening.
Okay, so capitalism also ties in with property rights. It's so when you think about what is a nation state is kind of like a giant HOA, homeowners association. We have, if you're an apartment or a townhouse or a special neighborhood with an HOA, you have limitations on what you can do by virtue of being associated with this. So by being in a part of a nation state, you are part of this communal property project called United States of America. So we have a right to put reasonable restrictions on who comes into our country. That's pretty reasonable. And that's why, people say, oh, so if you're opposed to mass migration, including mass illegal immigration, then you're anti-capitalism. I'm like, no. Lots of countries in Europe, like Switzerland, like Sweden, are more free market in many ways than we are, with lower regulations and lower taxes than we are. And they're far more restrictive on immigration than we are. So this idea that...
I don't disagree with you on that, Harry, that we can put restrictions. But ultimately, who ends up suffering in that is the consumer, right? And then so that means that it becomes... Yeah, because if you... look, Harry, if I have to pay a guy regular American wages to work, where does that cost go to?
If you're limiting the amount of people that can come in here, then what that does is that lowers the prices overall. If you increase the wages by decreasing the supply of workers, preventing all these millions of people from coming here legally or illegally, then that increases the wages of the people overall, and they can afford to pay a little bit extra for food. It's not as much of a shock. That's why Trump had a point when he said, we were the most prosperous we've ever been in the late 1800s when we had all tariffs and no income tax. And he's right. I mean, that was a very prosperous time financially for many Americans. We didn't have budget deficits. We didn't need to have an income tax system. That didn't come around until 1913. And many of the founding fathers on both sides of the aisle would have been very appalled by the creation of an income tax system. And even the central bank.
So while I understand that, but the lifestyle in the 1800s is far different than today. Like, for example, if I were to manufacture an iPhone in America, right, and if I bring in labor and manufacture certain things, like even these TVs that I'm buying right now, right, the average person is not going to be able to afford that. These are just the cost of doing business is, even if you limit the amount of TVs you're making or the amount of people that need TVs or whatever it may be, the cost of the labor itself is still going to be more expensive. That cost is going to translate to somebody. That's what Americans.
Yes, but
that's what they don't want to see.
If your citizens have higher wages, then they can afford that. And the fact that people were more prosperous and more successful when we've had lower rates of immigration is proof of what I'm saying. Huge part of the reason that wages have not kept up with inflation since the 1970s, I mean, really, it's just they haven't, it is because we've taken in like 30, 40, 50 million new people. And many of those people are illegal and they're working under the table, which means they're working at a cheaper rate. And that's what big business wants. They want to be able to stuff the country with more people. But what ends up happening is that even if you have cheaper prices because you've got cheaper mass labor to do this, it also affects the American consumer in other ways. So part of the reason Dallas-Fort Worth is so darn expensive right now is because we have a flood of international people, both legal and illegal, coming in. and also on top of all the people who are refugees from California and other blue states that are coming to Texas in droves. And so what ends up happening is Texas in the 90s was a really affordable place to live. Even a person working as an assistant manager at McDonald's could afford to buy a house. And now the Dallas-Fort Worth that I grew up knowing and loving, that I could afford to live in even as an assistant manager at McDonald's, does not exist anymore. And that's the consequence of bringing too many people in at once. The system it overloads the system. Okay? So rather than trying to keep prices of a head of lettuce low in a way that overwhelms the system in other ways, especially when it comes to housing, and you talk to Rob up in Canada, the situation in Canada is like out of control. Like, I'm surprised that Canadians aren't rebelling up there. That's why you see provinces like Saskatchewan and Alberta seriously talking about secession, more than Texans talk about secession, because they're so tired of Ottawa. Their country.
Well, that's why they got rid of Justin Trudeau. I mean, they're trying to sack him.
They did.
But here's the thing. What you're talking about makes sense if you strictly confine it to the American consumer, right? But if you want if you want to be a multi-trillion-dollar GDP, right? You can't focus only on the American consumer, right? Mass production. I mean, you're talking about being multinational corporations. If you restrict it to Americans only, right? And in the interest of Americans, these companies will ultimately suffer. Your tax revenue drops down. You won't make as much money. These companies that really, I'm just saying, there's nuances in this conversation. It's not just simply we have too many people. There's a reason why companies want a lower cost of goods, right? They want to be able to sell more.
Of AI and automation, do we really need another 10, 20, 30 million illegal immigrants to pour over the border? Or do we really need another 10, 20 million H-1B visas? I mean,
for Americans, no.
There's a McDonald's in Fort Worth that's fully automated. There's just one dude in the back managing all the machines. Sure. Why do we need a bunch of Consuelas from Nicaragua to come up here and run that McDonald's?
I agree, but then who's going to do the cleaning of the McDonald's?
There's one dude at that McDonald's who manages that McDonald's by himself, because it's all automated now.
So he does the mopping and the cleaning in the bathrooms and.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, think about it. There's a lot.
If you tell a manager he's got to be cleaning mops in the bathrooms, it's just kind of, I mean.
It's cheaper to pay one dude $50,000 to $60,000 a year to manage the McDonald's and keep all the machines running, than to have a store full of employees and dealing with all the drama and office politics that you have with managing a major restaurant chain like that.
See, what I can say is I think it's just a shift. I mean, people are realizing that, hey, look, man, the mundane things that are happening, it's for guys that just, for the labor class. There's classism happening right here. If I want to make more money, I'm going to be valuable in a skill that I can make more money into. There's no reason why I would want to go and work at McDonald's when I can find a way to work in IT and make double the money, right? And do something that I really think it's about, the American person finding out what's maximizing their money in the country. And some people have figured it out and some haven't, right? And it's just, and I think it's really getting into that point, because if you have a labor force of people, for me, I don't worry about a McDonald's job or all that stuff, right? Because it's not the kind of job that I'm chasing. I'm not worried about those jobs going away, right? Actually, I'm worried about what other higher earning jobs I can get. How as an American can we prepare people to be more at the top of the food chain? I think those are the conversations we need to have.
Well, as a business owner, you are though. You may not be as a professional, sure, but as a business owner, you're concerned about how can I maximize profits.
Well, I'm saying this to feed off Harry's point, because right now we're going more into automation, right? The idea of having labor workers in the mundane. Yeah. I'm saying, but where does that leave Americans? Americans are not going to be, if they can't be doing mundane jobs at McDonald's and Burger King or Walmart, what do they do? Right?
You're still going to have some jobs, because this is why I'm saying we don't need to be importing more non-Americans. We're going to have a hard enough time taking care of all the people that are already here.
I think robotics will play a huge part, right? I think robotics. I think if you see Massive Dynamics, Boston
Dynamics.
Massive Dynamics is a fictional company from this show called Fringe, but Boston Dynamics is doing some amazing work related to just making robots, and there's already so many prototypes available that robots will be flipping burgers and stuff like that.
You can pick up glasses without breaking them.
And what I'm thinking is going to happen is that a lot of these programs like disabilities and stuff, they're all just going to be rolled up into one universal healthcare or universal
UBI.
Payment.
Universal basic income. Yeah, UBI
type program that everyone who's eligible for it, for whether it's disability or anything, will be kind of rolled up into this program, and we're all going to be relying on robots for these mundane tasks.
I mean, look, man, I hate to say this, but I'm ready for that. I mean, hey, look, man, I hate dealing with people. I'm just gonna be honest with you, man. I'd rather just go to a place.
But you do realize that's going to come with a lot more taxes too. Because
of course,
there's going to be a lot more people on UBI.
Well, the idea is they're going to tax the robots. I think what the ideas are playing with is that the robots are the company that they pay tax, they would pay on employees on the robots.
Yeah,
right.
The more robots you have, the more.
Well, they pay per robot, right? I mean, they pay whatever an employee would have been. That they're gonna collect from that. Whatever the wage should have been.
It should already be implemented, like in car factories or what have you. Anything that has been replaced.
But in reality, like, I'll be happy if someone's mowing my lawn. I don't want to talk to some guy. Just I want to see a robot doing it, right? I don't want to just talk to anybody.
You don't enjoy the experience of talking to other human beings.
Hell no.
One of the things that comes
out of these
robots is that a lot of the factories are coming back to the United States because of automation. It's starting to be cost competitive. Instead of shipping stuff back and forth with these ridiculous across the globe supply chains, to bring factories back to the United States with the skeleton crew of dudes who are getting paid more than the average worker, but they're managing a bunch of machines, so therefore they have far fewer workers to pay and deal with and all that drama that comes along with it. So when Trump's talking about implementing tariffs to basically match with this new coming age of automation and prosperity and the deglobalization that's been going on for a variety of reasons, it makes sense. So to Mort's point, I don't think we're going to need to raise income taxes. I think what we're going to get, because Trump has made it pretty clear, and even Biden himself was already going in this direction. The Green New Deal was basically a bunch of government pork and subsidies and tariffs to protect American alternative energy and protect American auto workers and protect American industry. And that's just a consequence of being competitive with China, deglobalization, and the fact that automation and AI are bringing stuff back here to Los Estados Unidos.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example.
We're not going to need to raise income taxes. We can pay for a lot of the stuff.
And I'll give you an example of a situation where, like, I would rather have a robot moving, doing things. Like, for example, when I was in Arizona for business, they got this entire taxi company that has it's autonomous.
Waymo.
You just sit in the car. Yeah, that's what it's called. You sit in the car and you just take you where you need to go. I don't have to do this with creepy Uber guy. I don't have to have a conversation. Dude, every time I get an Uber, what do you do for a living? Oh, that's great. Oh, why are you here for business? Oh, all this nonsense, Or even things like, hey, is the temperature okay? Well, I don't care, dude.
The weather
just
conversation.
Get me to, and I don't have to worry about that, right? I can be on my day. I'm more productive. I have to waste my time with the small chit-chat nonsense. And that's the exact same, like when I go to a restaurant, go to the kiosk. If I can go to the kiosk, I'm going to the kiosk, right? If I have to deal with a person, I'm not dealing with a person. Because people are, especially this generation, inherently stupid. They can't, they don't know how to have a conversation. Even the conversations they have are stupid.
Yeah.
They're dumb conversations. I'm sorry to say there's dumb conversations. So why have them? Just let me get my robot automation thing done, get what I need to get done, and get out of the way.
Yeah.
If I can go to the checkout automated, I'm going there. Boom.
Not stupid. They're autistic. They're inherently autistic. Everybody.
You said it, not me.
I said it, and I'm not going to apologize because I'm a little bit autistic too. So everybody's on the spectrum now, and we just kind of have to accept that, and it just is what it is.
So look, I'll make an exception for people on the spectrum because that's not their fault. I'm talking about people that are just mundane and dumb. Like they're intentionally just brain dead, right? And I just don't want to waste my time with those things, right? Like I just don't. Like, I'll go to the grocery store. I don't want to talk to the person. I don't want to talk to the checkout person. I don't want to talk to my Uber guy. I don't want to talk to my delivery boy. I don't want to talk to my lawn care guy. I don't want to talk to my pest control guy. I just want it done, right? And robotics makes that done, right? It's easy. Like, I mean, why do you think I use Uber groceries? I don't want to go deal with people in the store. I just have some guy drop. I put literally drop at the door. Don't ring the doorbell. Don't call me. Just drop it.
Do you think a lot of people have the attitude they just don't want to talk about it?
No, I think that is, bro.
Because why also people have fake conversations?
Because I'm too busy. I'm too busy.
No, it's just human interaction is exhausting. Okay.
No. Wait. Let me rephrase. Useless human interaction is exhausting. The pleasantry when I'm walking by hi, that's great. But to sit there and be forced to have a conversation with someone when they want to talk about, and there's nothing, you're not on the same level. Like the guy's talking about, hey man, yeah, I can't wait to buy a pair of Adidas shoes. Like, I don't really care, bro. It's not my thing. Like, I'm not. We're on different levels.
You don't want to say, yeah, I hope you achieve that dream.
I mean, I might say it casually, but I really don't give a crap. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like. Okay, this is just maybe me. I'm not saying everyone's like this, but I just like to maximize my time.
Yeah.
Right? And if it's not maximizing my time, it's just useless and mundane to me.
Yeah, no, I got you.
I don't have time in the day to do that.
You grind.
Yeah, I don't. I'm too busy to do that kind of stuff, and it just gets in the way of productivity. Now, for other people who are maybe retired, or it works great for them. They get to go to the talk around, and it's an outing. They get to the malls, get their steps in, blah, 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 blah. Wonderful. Do that stuff, right? But for me, in my life, in the way I operate, if I can reduce that chatter and that wasted time, I'm going to take every opportunity to reduce it and get more, maximize my own time.
You know what this reminds me of? You know when like Russians are always asked, like the last few decades, hey, how come Russians never smile? How come they never do small talk, right? Yeah. And it's like Russians, like if you ask them, there's all this YouTube videos on interviewing them, just like, well, we don't smile. If you smile, you don't know somebody. It's like, oh, this person's probably hiding something or just being fake to you. They're probably going to be conniving towards you. So they're actually they seem to be really cold because they don't have that culture of just forcing a conversation when we don't have anything to talk about. Like, that's why, bro, you guys have been in like meetings. Why does everybody talk about the weather when nobody cares? They don't know what to talk about.
Every day. Oh, what's the temperature in Chicago?
Yeah,
it's so cold there. I know you're in a warm place, a-hole. I know that. Like, I don't really care to know the temperature today in Arizona or in California.
Even in the elevators, you go in the elevator.
I walk in the room and say, "What's up, you not autistic Neanderthals?" There's going to be plenty of conversation flowing right after that happens.
I purposely put my AirPods in. The greatest thing ever I bought was a pair of AirPods. I put them in and go, and don't say nothing. That's what I do. I literally just keep them in there, and I don't talk.
It's important because one of the horrible things you do, like, as you learn, you're like, oh, I'm not going to talk about the weather, right? We're talking about something more deep and insightful. Yeah. Man,
it's a big mistake.
Big mistake, man. I ended up upsetting some liberal person because I was just like, why did Trump actually win? And then they just went. I wasn't even taking Trump's side. I was kind of being like,
But you triggered somebody. That's
dude, I avoid politics. Dude. I avoid religion. I avoid all that in the public.
Me too.
It's not worth my time.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be a dumping ground for your emotions. Screw you, dude. I don't care. I don't care about your feelings, dude.
I love where this conversation went.
All right, let's close this show off with this celebratory. That was Islam Makhachev winning last night over Moicano.
Yeah. Renato Moicano. Yeah.
Moicano.
Yeah.
It
Brazilian.
sounds like Mexicano.
Yeah. Moicano. He's Brazilian.
Moicano.
Yeah.
And that he cemented his what is most consecutive title defenses.
Yeah, beat Anderson Silva last night.
As a lightweight.
Incredible achievement. Anderson Silva is one of the greatest fighters of all time, and having the number of defenses against your title is a huge accomplishment. Yeah. That
I just love how they have to announce Islam wins. I just love the way that sounds. Islam wins. Islam wins. It's just a beautiful, nice little thing. But I think they interviewed him afterwards in his post-fight conference. And he was saying, because, do you remember how his face looked a little off, like he just didn't want to be there? He was really bummed out about Omar losing. Because he's like, I'm trying to warm up, and they're watching the fights. And he's saying, I'm warming up, and I'm watching him lose little by little.
Omar, who is Khabib's cousin, fought earlier in the day, and he had broken his hand in the first round. He continued fighting.
4 rounds like that. 4 rounds. Went to decision.
And there's a proof of that, by the way.
Yeah, the picture.
The picture of his broken hand.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? Topuria, another Georgian, fighting in Spain, is like talking crap, like, this is what happens when a Dagestani meets a Georgian. He's like, give me a fight next against Islam. And I'm like, dude, you are talking about a kid who just got his first title shot.
Yeah.
Islam lost the fight. Didn't he at one point?
Yeah.
Right. And where is he at right now?
Here's
Yeah.
Omar's
Losing
hand.
doesn't define whether you can be a champion or not.
You can see on his index finger is completely caved in. So he definitely broke his finger.
And so he shattered a little bone inside of the hand.
It's mind blowing that he continued fighting like that. To me,
Yeah.
Talk about resilience.
I would have been on the ground.
Yeah.
I would have made it look like even worse than it actually was. You know,
And that's why
I would have acted like paralyzed. You know, like 'cause I don't want anyone to call me. You know, you're.
No.
Oh, you.
But that explains why those punches were not hurting.
But he
Merab.
still punched with that hand. Isn't that crazy? The whole fight.
I know, but I'm
Punch with
saying
a broken hand.
your
Yeah,
punching
of course.
power is going to be less,
Of course,
right?
of course.
So
he still put up a good match against
Right,
him.
of course.
His first title defense. He's still young. You know, Islam Makhachev said that, you know, this is kind of a good thing that happened because now he's going to come back even stronger.
But I
He
think
hasn't even hit
the
prime
biggest thing
yet.
is I'm so happy with the way he responded. He says, "I win or lose no matter, alhamdulillah."
Yeah. He kept on saying alhamdulillah.
Yeah, and
beautiful.
that's a sign of someone who's, you know, who's mature,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. He's got this, man. He's so
Yeah.
young right now.
Yeah.
Look, when somebody makes a claim, I broke my hand because some people were like, "Why would he say that? What if he's?" But in the MMA, especially now, the exposure that it has, that person is going to be, if they really didn't break their hand, they're going to be found out within an hour or two.
Yeah.
That's why Ali Abdulaziz posted that within an hour or two of him losing the fight because he actually broke his hand.
Yeah.
And you could tell Omar didn't want to make that excuse. He's like,
Yeah.
he was like kind of, but. Me and Mort were talking yesterday during this fight because we saw the fight together. It is becoming interesting in this weight class, in these few weight classes where there's these Dagestanis and Georgians, both from Russia, but how they're bringing their culture into the UFC and is becoming like Russians against Russians in the UFC.
Yeah.
Don't tell
I
the
beat up
Georgians
quote
that.
better
Don't
than
tell
you.
The Georgians that. The Georgians are not Russian.
They're not
They
Russians.
will let you know that.
Yeah,
They're not
yeah.
Russians.
Oh,
They were created by
they-
Russia
yeah.
to be a barrier
Yeah.
between like the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but I think historically they share some culture.
Yeah.
They're Turkic people.
They're both Eastern Orthodox. But
Yeah.
But the UFC is like evolving into this internal strife.
This
between
Caucasian
Yeah.
caucus battle.
Yeah, I mean, you're hearing saying that about Georgians. It's funny when I was working with some Russian colleagues. I was like, "Hey, you know, you guys must be happy about Khabib." And so I was just trying to make conversation. You know, I'm coffee talk. Whenever I'm not to talk about weather, you know,
Talk about weather.
another
Wah,
surprise
wah, wah.
revelation. Like we don't consider those people down there Russian. We are, you know,
No,
we
they
consider
don't.
people around
Moscow,
or,
St.
you know, up
Petersburg.
there,
Yeah.
they're all real. That's no consequence to us. What they do. Well, okay,
Cold.
well,
It's
fine.
like,
Bold.
it's like how we don't think of people on Guam, which is an American territory, as Americans.
Well, it's an interesting.
Or New
how-
Mexico?
You know, one of the
Right.
funny things about that is that you understand how or why the U.S. works so well, because it makes everyone feel American, no matter what color you look like.
Yeah, there's
Right?
patriotism.
No. But why does Russia have this problem, where people are wanting to separate from their
Oh, I'll
provinces?
tell
They
you
don't want to
why.
reintegrate
'Cause-
they don't rally around this Russian identity. There's still that kind of old
Well,
school
Russia
type
wasn't
thinking.
founded on, mass immigration.
It's still they have mass integration though. That's what they have.
Forced
Russia
integration.
as a Forced integration,
federation
Forced
has a high
integration,
degree
yeah.
of-
Yeah, but
But even
Russia
then, many empires
but
still
I'm
are
saying-
successful,
but
right?
I'm saying America had it as so. Well, I mean, other bigger empires had autonomous regions, right? But America had it in such a way where whatever these cultures brought ended up becoming American with its own twist, right? Like there's
Yes.
Italian American, Irish American, Chinese American. This is
if
very
you wouldn't,
different.
Wouldn't you rather have that way of thinking
Sure.
than the Russian? If
Absolutely.
you were a Russian,
That's what makes America
if
great.
if you were Putin, you would think like, "Hey, I want to bring prosperity. I want people to from every part
Want
of
them to
Russia
feel like they're
to
Russian.
feel like they're Russian and they're contributing to the motherland." But there's still like this otherization that's happening across Russia.
Well, it's
that
kind of
makes
hard
them-
when you spend 500 years beating their ass. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to say, "Hey, you're one of us."
right?
Yeah,
Well,
the way Russia has worked is a combination of threats, violence, and sometimes autonomy and decentralization. Like the Federation actually is pretty decentralized as it's set up, and Putin, I think, wisely has done a lot to reach out to Muslims in Dagestan and Chechnya and really make them feel welcome and part of the team. And you would see their new army recruitment ads where they have Russian Orthodox people praying alongside Muslims on the battlefield, Muslims praying, trying to appeal to a new sense of national identity. But
too late. I think it's a little late. I think people see through that.
Well, it's forced. You can tell it's forced. It's public media, but internal forced, conversations are not that way.
It's forced, but there are historical examples of where mandatory fun works. Singapore has been very successful with mandatory fun, in that they were able to take all these different groups of people, mostly Chinese island, but also Hindu and a few white people and then a few Muslims, and basically say, okay, look, you're all going to be living in mixed apartment buildings and you're all Singaporeans now. So sometimes if
it works in smaller nations.
It works in smaller nations, but the generally better. But smaller nations work better in general, anyways.
Yeah.
What the thing is, you have to have a combination of stick and carrot, and that's how you have mandatory fun working for you. Yeah. It is possible to do that in a generation or two, but you have to. It's going to take a while. Russia, it's much more difficult. It's going to take a while longer. And I actually think that Russia might become a Muslim nation just because of demographic shifts. Well, because the Muslims are the only people.
No.
It's certainly possible. Especially because the actual Russian part is not very Russian to begin with. I mean, it's only that one part that's St. Petersburg and Stalin. It's called Stalin still, or
Moscow.
Moscow. And what's the third city? What am I forgetting? Anyway, those are the traditional Russian regions, and then the areas up north, they're all mainly tribal.
Yeah, you have Yakut people, Siberian people. Yeah, you have the Turkic peoples, Avars, Dagestanis, Chechens.
Yep,
it's all different. Yeah.
All right, brothers and sisters, that's our show for this afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see y'all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Adios.
I want their leader brought here. I want him brought to me. I want the revolution crushed.